Hello, I'm Mish, and I invite you in today to be inspired, invigorated, and nourished. This podcast, in her own way, is for women who are ready to empower themselves to live an aligned life that is unapologetic, rich, and radiant. An open discussion that is transparent about the struggles, tips, and stories of women who have come to live in their own truth, power, and sense of self. I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here and with me on this journey. You are all in for a treat today with Alison Morgan, who is one of Australia's leading business coaches, and she specializes helping health, fitness, wellness, and lifestyle businesses grow their brand and profile. She brings 20 years of experience in marketing and 6 years of private business coaching clients to this podcast. And let me tell you, I love Alison. I always was super wary of business coaches and branding coaches, and I've actually got burned in the past. But what I love about her is that she's very practical, very relatable, and she's been doing this for a while. So what she brings to this podcast is authenticity. She brings tips on how to start up a business, what she wished she would have known when she started up her business, and also tips and tools and tricks on how to balance motherhood and creating the sustainability in your entrepreneurship journey. This is such a great podcast. I hope that you enjoy. Hello, Alison. How are you today?
I'm really well. It's so lovely to be here speaking with you.
Thank you. I've wanted to have you on for a little while because you're actually one of the first business coaches I ever really came across. And I remember when I first started out my journey meeting you, it was like in a yoga studio, I think in Mount Lawley or something, you doing your workshops. And I thought, I really like her because she's so practical and so down to earth, and she's not selling anything. Like, I just think you're so real. And that's why I want to have you on today, because I really want my audience, who I know are all sorts of different walks of life, but the professional entrepreneurship, like, how do you, like, what is a business coach? What do you do? And also just some tips and some insights that you've had over the years. So I guess we should just kick off and say a little bit about who you are and what you currently are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So my name is Alison Morgan and my company is called Relauncher, which has been going for about 8 years now. I cannot believe it's been going. Like, I'm not that old. Like, it's like, how has that happened? Amazing. So I'm a business coach, and what that means is I work with people one-on-one to help people set up, grow, or evolve their businesses. They're all small businesses that I work with, and it ranges from startups right through to people that have been going for 10 plus years. And what I'm seeing more of these days is these established businesses. Quite often the owners have up to 3 businesses.
Wow.
And yeah, it's becoming a bit of a trend actually, because what used to happen in the past is people would have different areas of the business and put it all under the one brand and the one company name. Whereas now people are starting to split it out into different brands, but still target the same audience, but it becomes far more single-minded, and it's also easier for them to sell that company.
Yeah.
It's quite different the way that I work with everyone, just depending on what stage they're at and actually where they need help with. The majority of the business that I work with these days really are in that health, fitness, wellness category.
Yeah.
But in there's also, fashion and beauty and cafes and retail spaces and, active wear and, motorcycle wear. It's quite diverse these days. But I do find that most small business owners really sort of are in this health, wellness, fitness genre.
So I guess it kind of precludes with, how did you get here? I mean, you're from Perth and your husband's from Adelaide. I remember he's from Adelaide, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
You're like, we are not moving. No, I was joking.
I did say that.
Which is so funny because I'm like, I want to move to Adelaide. Someone send me to Adelaide right now. But how did this come about? So your kids are now how old?
12 and 14. Again, I'm not old enough. I'm not old enough to have children that age. I mean, my gosh, that has happened overnight.
Oh, they're so cute though.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That really is the mark of time, is seeing your kids grow up. It happens so quickly, and it's a really good reminder that we really do, like, as quickly as our lives are going with business and everything else we've got going on, we do have to stop, because those kids are gone in the flash of the eye and we don't own them. You know, they're in our lives for a very, very short period of time, and it's up to us to kind of stop and really drink it in. Totally. So back to your original question, you know,
how did you get going? Yeah. So your kids were 4 and 6.
Yes.
And so basically, let's start a business.
Yeah. Well, basically what happened is I was living in Perth, and I always just thought, oh my gosh, I really want to get some really good marketing experience from a big company. And for me to do that, I need to be over in the eastern states.
Yeah.
So I started working for a fast-moving consumer goods company called Unilever, which is it's global. And I had to start in their sales, even though I cannot stand sales and I'm no good at it. But I knew that that's where I had to start to get into their marketing department. Anyway, I managed to get into their marketing department. It was really, really tough. And then they relocated me over to Sydney with like 2 weeks' notice. And I had to break up with the boyfriend, which was devastating. They took away my company car, which was also devastating, and literally just put me on a plane and sent me, you know, over here. And I knew no one. I was 23. My mother had really done everything for me. And all of a sudden, I'm living in a hotel overlooking the harbour by myself, thinking, how's this going to work? You know, like the dream was better than reality. Yeah. And also the office was out in the sticks, so far away. So anyway, I stayed out there. I stayed with Unilever, learned everything that I needed to learn, and then I got another job in the city, which was in finance, again still in marketing, and just learnt so much. And you know, basically, to cut a long story short, I met my husband, who's in advertising, and he went to London with work, so I followed and worked over there in some fabulous, really, really big blue chip companies. And then I got pregnant. And I knew that I would not be able to continue in my corporate marketing role because Richard is just not around and we don't have family support. And by this stage, we'd moved back to Sydney. Yeah. So I always knew that at some point I was going to start my business, but I didn't know what on earth it was going to be. And I had no idea how to get anything started. And what a lot of people don't know is that I actually started my business with a business partner. And I pitched the idea to her, and the business idea was very different to what it is today. And without her, I would not have had the confidence to start the business because she was 10 years older than me, and she just had a lot of, you know, like wiseness about her that I didn't have at that stage. And then basically she then left the business because she had other things going on. And then I literally at that point completely rebranded the business and turned it into what it needed to be, which is basically what you see today, which is business coaching. Yeah. So it's been through a huge evolution, and there's such, you know, there's a really long backstory behind it. But basically that's the reason why I started the business up, was to create the flexible lifestyle. And I've really, really evolved it over the years.
I love this question of I love what you had said and admitted that, you know, I didn't have the confidence to start a business. I think there's a lot of women who are wanting to be entrepreneurs who can totally relate to that. I mean, I'm the same. I mean, we've had conversations in our own coaching calls where it's hard for me to see what I have in front of me or to see my own talents and gifts. But I wanted to ask you a question about zipping back 8 years ago to where you started, or when you started to brand your own business or started. What do you wish you would have known? Or what do you wish you would have done differently?
It was such a different era when I started. You know, like social media really wasn't around, and to create even the website cost a fortune because there was nothing like Squarespace and that.
Squarespace, I know.
It was a different climate. And you know what I often say is the knowledge that I have now and how I can fast track people through businesses, I should have had me back then. You know, like a business coach, because I spent the first 3 years orbiting. I spent quite a lot of money in things that I didn't see a return in. But in saying that, that's allowed me to be really good at my job now. So in a way, I had to go through that journey. Yeah, totally. But if I had my time again, without, knowing what I know now, I would have got a business coach or someone to guide me through. But I think it's really important to find that person that you get on with and also has a good, their vision for you aligns with your vision for you. Because I think if you're partnered with the wrong person as a mentor, or someone to guide you, sometimes they might push you out of your comfort zone, which is fine, but in a way that you don't particularly agree with, and then you can still make mistakes.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, so I think, learning from other people's journeys is hugely, such an important part of it. And I think this is one of the reasons why, resources like podcasts and blog articles that are available these days is so valuable.
Yeah, totally. I actually agree with you. I mean, if I could go back and do things differently, I mean, I made a very expensive mistake early on in my career because I thought, I want to hitch my wagon because they told me that they would do X, Y, and Z. And what it was really out of was desperation. It wasn't out of alignment. So I love what you said about finding someone or investing in something that's actually aligned with who you are and is going to honor you, not only as a business owner, but as an individual. And I think coaching, I like the idea of, for me, it's been helpful either like short and fast and hard, a specific thing that I need to work through, or the opposite being very short, consistent meetings that are kind of like an accountability check. Like they may not have any strategy behind them, but they're just like, okay, so how are you going? What's going on? But I think one of the biggest mistakes I see with people hiring coaches is they're wanting that coach to then transform their business for them, which is not the intention of a coach, in my opinion. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I've been lucky that I've coached so many people over the years, and I've been fortunate enough not to be in that situation where someone's expected me to transform their business. In our meetings, they're so structured, and basically there's real action steps from them. So, they either do the actions or they don't. And if they don't, well, then clearly the business is not going to move. So I think a lot of it is attracting the right people that you want to work with.
Yeah, I totally agree. So that kind of goes to my next question for you is, as a business coach, I'd imagine that you work with both men and women, but the health industry might lend itself to more female entrepreneurs, just not necessarily, but possibly. What do you find women in particular, do you see as like consistent patterns with women that they struggle with when they're running their businesses?
Yeah. Do you know, it's interesting because I do coach some men, but not enough. I do really, really enjoy coaching the men. But generally speaking, everyone complains about time. And what I always say is there's always going to be a lack of time, because even when we get that thing out of the way that's taking up all the time, more work comes in or circumstances change. So time is always going to be an issue. And rather than complaining about it, we're better off just working with it and working around it. And so that's why just being so focused and understanding what you need to achieve, not only every day, but also, every quarter, makes a huge difference. And what I see a lot of is that some people have so many ideas that they don't do any of them.
Yeah.
They become overwhelmed, or they start doing all of them and they're so busy and they're darting here and there, but they're just skimming the surface and nothing's actually happening with the business.
Yeah.
And so the approach that I take, and with others, is very much a minimalist approach. And quite often I'll take work off people. Yeah. Which will give them back time, but also they become so much more focused, and you actually can then start getting results. Even if it's a learning strategy or an earning strategy, you start to understand so much more about your business, which then gives you an idea of what to do next. So I think, taking this more of this minimalist approach, and I always say, break your year up into school terms or quarters, depending on how you work, and have a maximum of 3 marketing strategies in there and a minimum of 1. Because if you don't have any, the business is just going to coast and you're just doing, day-to-day stuff. And in small business, you can't afford just to be coasting because there's so many new players coming on. So, having this really, really clear strategy. But the other thing that I do is really block out my days in my diary so that I know exactly what I'm doing at each block of that day. So I find that's really, really useful. But one of the other things that I find is that, so many people put so much pressure on themselves to be this huge success. And most people want to be an overnight success. And we have all of us have learned that, success in business takes time, and you just have to go with the journey, because the journey is part of the learning to get you to where you need to be.
I totally agree. I think that's one of the things that people will see, especially in my previous career. It's like, this person succeeded hugely in 10 months. It's like, yeah, but they've been working on their business for 10 years.
Yes.
So
yes.
You might see this person win the prize, quote unquote, up on stage, but it's like they've been doing work for 10 years, I think that's kind of the weird entrepreneurial crack, as I like to call it, of just like, this is not normal. It's the other thing too, what you kind of spoke on was this idea of overwhelm, people not being really aligned with their vision because they don't actually have the scaffolding, the personal development scaffolding around them to be aligned enough. And so I think often to an entrepreneurship journey too, like you just said, it's a journey. And some people will start with a ton of scaffolding and a ton of awareness, and they can just kill it because they're able to really block the noise out. And some people have really good ideas, but because they don't have the scaffolding, they don't know how to turn the noise off.
Yeah.
And so I think what you said is really wise. So I also love how, and you're kind of my idol in this way, you really prioritize your own health.
I have to. Otherwise, I'm not as nice. If I don't exercise and if I haven't looked after myself, I get quite scratchy.
Yeah.
When I first had children, I thought that my role as mother was basically to put the children first at all times. And I nearly had a breakdown, I reckon, about, probably a year into it, because I was pregnant with the second one when the first one was 8 months. And then I realised, again, because it was a different era, I realised I actually had to do something for myself. And for me, it's different for everyone. For me, that was just doing some exercise to start off with. And, to this day, if I don't do that in the morning, I feel like I haven't started my day.
Yeah. I love, before this podcast, you just gone for a quick walk. And I think it's very easy as an entrepreneur to pack your schedule, to have no time for yourself. You're just tail ending each day with domestic duties, as I call them. And then you work all day long in front of your computer, and you forget to take those, 20 to 30 minute breaks just to decompress your brain and also move your body. So I love that. I guess we could talk forever, but I guess my last question for you today is, what does it mean to do life in your own way?
This is such a big question, isn't it? I think a lot of it is so much about discovering your own flow and not looking what others are doing. Yeah. I think trying to live your life the way that others is just setting you up for not being that happy, and also potentially kind of failing because you're not that person. So I think also, really understanding what are your triggers for your moods and actions, because then you can start to align your day well so that it's going to work for you. And what I know is I'm a morning person, and if I don't start my morning off correctly, my day is not productive and I'm not really that happy. Yeah. So that's my flow. Whereas my husband, he's the opposite. He's a night owl and he would prefer to sleep in the mornings. And so rather than trying to convert him into my flow, I just let him be him, and it works.
I'm snickering because he's always late.
Again, okay, so that's his flow. And if I tried to change that, we would end up disagreeing all the time, and then it just wouldn't work. So I've learned over the years that if we have to be somewhere, I just tell him it's half an hour earlier than what it really is. Because otherwise, if I'd be saying to him, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up all the time. And even then he's still late. But I think it's like finding your own flow is like, how is this going to be? How is this going to work? And then also not trying to change other people's flows, but somehow it works, whether that's a business partner or a life partner or whatever. But I think we need to respect that everyone is different and not try to change everyone to be like us at the same time.
I love that. And I also think we've talked a lot about social media, of having people in your feed that inspire you, invigorate you, keep you in your flow, challenge you, and not looking at other people to kind of do a reconnaissance mission every day. What are they doing? What's their, strategy? It's that's not the point. That too. we talked about before of comparison, just removing that stimulation of comparison in social media so that you can stay in your flow all the time has been also very important for me as well.
Oh gosh. And I think also when you're starting a business, look, it's important to know what others are doing, but at the minute you understand what they're doing, you need to just, unsubscribe, unfollow, and just do your own thing, because you're never going to be them. And you know what? We don't need two of the same people anyway.
I love that.
Yeah. So I think, it's quite interesting because I coach people from all ages. Some people are in their 60s. And I do find that, there's a handful of younger people that are quite affected by social media, and it causes anxiety and it really affects them. And I think, again, with I'm not that old. I keep talking about age. I never talk about age. What are you doing to me? But I'm unaffected by social media. And I think that that's because, social media wasn't around for the majority of my time when it came to marketing and business growth and all that kind of thing. So I do think it's just very much about gearing yourself to not be affected by what other people do. And if they are affecting you, you need to really just bounce out of it.
I love it. So Alison, where can we find you and what do you have coming up?
There's always things coming up, isn't there? My next workshop is in Sydney in August, and then I'll be back in Perth either later this year or early next year. But all my details are on my website at relauncher.com.au, and you can just click through to all the social media handles from there as well.
Well, as always, you are an absolute gem. Thank you so much for bringing it real, to business coaching. Sometimes I think it can be a little bit slimy and over the top and a little bit ridiculous, but I think what you bring is experience and wisdom, and I just think a genuine authenticity that a lot of people are searching for, and I'm grateful that I found you.
Thanks so much, Misha. I've literally got goosebumps as you just said all that.
Well, take it in. Take it in.
I am. I'm drinking it in.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today. If you'd like more information about myself, my journey, my public speaking engagements, or life coaching with me, please head to my website, mishpope.com. If you can kindly leave me a beautiful review on iTunes, I would be forever grateful. I can't wait to connect again in the next episode.